This is part 3, collective message. We are talking about fungus, candida, and the sugar yeast connection. I'm going to continue where I left off, but I would like to add here that again, when left unchecked, when we don't balance throughout the process, or throughout our daily lives, we don't try to balance the fungi within us or outside of us, like on our skin. It's not always inside, it's outside as well. And when you don't take the time to do that, it can cause an imbalance, like an overgrowth or undergrowth. And in tune with that, it will send a signal to another spot if left unchecked. And within that spot causes a chain reaction within that area. So let's say if you have something that starts up here with your lymphatic system, but it's usually started within the gut. But if you have something that starts in here and it signals down here to the gut, it's going to have symptoms of the gut area. Or, again, if you have something that happens in the gut and it sends signals up to the throat area, you're going to have areas in the throat. Or it can send signals up here and you're going to have more symptoms up here. And again, this can run, externally as well. And if left unchecked, unbalanced throughout, extended periods of years being unnoticed, which happens to a lot of people, it becomes a serious problem, because then it creates, almost like permanent blockages, which can be fixed, if caught soon enough. But otherwise, they create these blockages, and it's harder for the natural functions of the body to occur at a normal rate. Instead of, still living in a chaotic, system, because nothing's been fixed, nothing's been adjusted. So anyways, sweet tooth, we often hear people say this. A lot of people have sweet tooth. We crave sweet things. And on top of that, expressing how they wish they could better control their cravings for sugar and processed carbohydrates. Some often say they experience other symptoms such as fatigue, bloating, gastrointestinal irregularities, moodiness, and brain fog. What they may not realize is that these may all be related to the same root problem. It can be an overgrowth of candida fungus, otherwise commonly known as yeast. And again, there's many different forms. And they usually affect one area, but in affecting one area, they do ultimately affect the other half. It just happens. Otherwise commonly known as yeast. Once we are able to get their candida levels under control, their symptoms subside and they regain their energy. So yeast overgrowth. This less commonly known health imbalance caused by candida overgrowth is important to understand. I know there's a lot of, science in this, but it's important to know this because it is something that is more common than we even realize. It's more important than most understand. What does it look like? What symptoms are associated with this imbalance or condition? In further discussion, and strategies that's what we'll discuss in further discussions. And strategies to rebalance yeast levels and to improve quality of life and longevity in the process. So, lack of self-control or out of control yeast. most would think their sweet tooth is just merely habit or addiction or just lack of self control. And this is true. When in reality, we also need to think about the possibility. What's really out of control is yeast on the body. And this is something a lot of us don't think of. With correction to all areas of the body, you can greatly appreciate the results when you put them back in balance. So, in the correction of candida overgrowth, you feel the relief like almost instantaneously if you get it right. In the correction and correcting the reward cascade in the brain, it creates this. So, the brain reward cascade. You may already be aware that the gut, the brain, and immune systems are closely interconnected. These systems working together may be driving your sweet tooth, skin irritations, like some that come and go, or some that, are a constant, and depression, like that may come and go, or it may be a constant. If your gut microbiome, that's the important part, is not in balance and laden with yeast, the many different forms, neurotransmitters in the brain may also be unbalanced and become dysfunctional. And this may happen consciously or unconsciously. You may be aware of it, you may not be. So the optimal functioning of the brain reward cascade involves specifically 4 neurochemical pathways: serotonergic, encephalinergic, GABAergic, and dopaminergic. We're gonna go with that. You can look that stuff up later if you really want to. But they affect moods. And with this, you can think of using the elements, if you connect to that in many different ways. That's connecting to the different elements, the 4 quadrants or 5. They affect moods: happiness, pleasure, peace, etc. When we put our bodies under stress, physical or mental, etc., there is a trigger to increase that good feeling, to replace the void or bad feeling, to chase away, quickly move on, etc. But when you become, the observer, and you become aware of these feelings, when you take control of them, it's easier to replace that with truth and understanding, and you sort of map out, you make a blueprint of how to move, forward. So in essence, reprogramming the brain. That's important to note there. So many people reach to food, video games, gambling, sex, drugs, etc. Something to occupy the time. And it may be something big. It may be something small. It could be small habits, fidgets, like having to get up, having to move, all these thoughts. It can be a wide variety of things, but sometimes it's about not sitting still. We have that problem of not sitting still, and we're chasing something to sort of keep our minds going. And that's sort of like a natural habit, a natural feeling and process that we all go through. And when you, again, become that observer, you're able to reach to that within yourself, and you don't have to reach for that, externally. So when you become aware, you can pinpoint these things again to get down to the root, and see the full frontal. So it's like an eye. So you have that middle root, and then you're seeing all around it the interconnections and how they connect. and how they cause each other, distress and whatever may be the case, and how they interconnect in good ways. You're finally starting to see that balance, or that's how you should be looking at things, in a whole, in a circle. Same with the body. You should be looking at it as a whole, not separating it. So next part.